Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere cold, so cold your eyelashes might freeze together if you blink too slowly. You're standing on a wide expanse of snow, endless white stitched with shadow and silence. The sky is low and blue-gray, like a lid placed gently over the world. In every direction, stillness, softness, and the kind of cold that doesn't shout, it settles. And yet, here, in this land where your breath crystallizes in midair and sound carries for miles, there's something unexpected waiting, something sweet. Ice cream, not scooped from a plastic tub, not topped with sprinkles, and definitely not served in a cone. This is ice cream made from seal fat and snow, whipped with berries, maybe a little fish, and a whole lot of ancestral patience. It's called akutak, and the people who make it, Inuit and other indigenous Arctic communities, have been crafting this dessert long before the first freezer ever hummed to life. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is where you are. Post it in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin walking slowly, carefully, boots crunching through snow. The air bites at your nose, but you keep going, following the scent of rendered fat and warm conversation drifting on the wind. Somewhere ahead, there's a fire, somewhere just beyond the snow ridge. Someone is mixing something ancient and remarkable. Inuit communities live where most people couldn't last a week, but they don't just survive, they thrive. And like any thriving community, they've found ways to make the world a little softer, a little sweeter. Even in the middle of winter, akutaki isn't just food. It's culture, it's comfort, and it's stored in ways so ingenious, they'd make your fridge feel like a clumsy humming box. Because when you live in a place where everything is already frozen, your relationship with cold changes. Here, the permafrost becomes your pantry. Snowdrifts become your insulation, and the warmth of the hands preparing food is as important as the meal itself. Historians still argue whether akutak began as a treat or a necessity. Was it meant to delight or to help bodies hold on to calories during the long winters? But the people who make it don't waste time arguing. They stir, they blend, they serve. Tonight, you'll step into a world where seal oil meets berries, where snow becomes a tool, and where storing ice cream without a freezer is not just possible, it's practical. You pull your parka tighter, drawn by the scent of seal and snowberries, and suddenly you realize this journey won't just teach you about dessert. It'll change the way you think about cold, survival, and what it means to preserve something beautiful without melting it. You keep walking. The wind is a low murmur now, brushing against your hood like someone gently reminding you where you are. Every step crunches, soft but sure, as if the snow is helping you along. There's no road here, no signs, and yet you're being led by memory, maybe, or by the smell of something faintly sweet in the air, like fat warming slowly over a fire touched with berries. You crest a small ridge and look out over a settlement. Low homes, half buried in snowdrifts, blend into the land, not hidden, just at peace with it. Smoke rises from narrow chimneys. The smell grows stronger now. Something ancient, something comforting. Here, in this frigid calm, cold is not the enemy. Cold is the keeper. You walk past a set of seal bones arranged in careful rows. They tell a story, though you can't quite read it. A few children run past you, laughing, their breath leaving bright trails in the air. They carry bowls. You follow them to the edge of a snow-packed circle where two women are kneeling, sleeves rolled, hands red and raw, stirring something inside a wide stone bowl. This is where it begins. Akutak, what looks like snow, fat, and maybe a bit of magic. There's no freezer here. There never was. But ice cream real, calorie rich, deeply loved, has been eaten here for hundreds, even thousands of years. And somehow, it was always kept cold, not because it was difficult, but because here, everything is cold. The very ground beneath you is frozen. Permafrost. They call it a layer of soil that stayed frozen for years, decades, even centuries. In places like this, it can be just a few inches down. Dig a shallow pit, line it with sealskin or stone, and suddenly you've got nature's own walk-in freezer. Historians still debate whether Inuit food storage evolved independently or was influenced by contact with other Arctic peoples like the Chukchi or Evenki. But anyone who's lived here long enough knows that the land itself teaches you what works. Trial and error, passed down through hands, not textbooks. You step closer. One of the women glances up and nods. She's folding rendered caribou fat into snow with quick, practiced motions. Berries go in wild ones, hand-picked in summer and frozen in seal bladders for winter. Each motion is rhythmic, like music played without instruments. And now you understand. Here, food isn't stored so much as nested into the environment. There's no humming refrigerator door to swing open. Instead, you store things in the ground. You wrap them in tradition, insulate them with knowledge. You don't need to fight the cold. You use it. Even in summer brief, golden, chaotic people dig deeper, seek shady spots, cover the caches with moss, wood, or snow packed tightly in layers. The trick isn't just keeping the cold in, it's keeping the heat out. Your eyes wander to a snowbank off to the side. From the outside, it looks like nothing, just a lump. But someone walks over, brushes aside a flat stone lid, and lifts out a bowl. Still cold, still sealed. That's a cache. That's a freezer. No humming, no electricity, no clicks or coils, just silence and snow. You take a slow breath. In a world driven by convenience, it's easy to forget that keeping something just cold enough once required deep attention. You had to know your land, know the wind, know how shadows fall in winter. In this moment, you feel small, but not in a bad way, like a single snowflake resting in a larger drift, part of the system, temporary, but held. And now someone's offering you a taste. The woman has finished stirring. The mixture is firm but soft, pale, slightly pink from the berries. You dip a finger. It's cold, rich, not sweet in the way you expect, but honest, like something that's not trying to impress you, just trying to remind you that people have been doing this a long, long time, and they didn't need a freezer, just snow and patience and a knowledge of the cold that most of us never have to learn. You look at the bowl again. It holds more than dessert. It holds a history, and it's not melting anytime soon. The taste lingers longer than you expect. It's not like any dessert you've had before. It doesn't coat your mouth with sugar or vanish into airiness. Instead, it stays fatty, dense, with a bright thread of berry cutting through like a story passed down in whispers. Your body, surprised at first, seems to recognize it. Like it's not just eating, but remembering. You sit near the fire now, the bowl passed to another pair of hands. There's no rush here, no clinking of spoons, no polite mms, just slow eating, slow stirring, slow nodding, and you begin to understand that akutak, this ice cream of the north, was never meant for speed. It was never about indulgence. It was about keeping calories, warmth, family, memory. It began, they say, in hunger, not famine, not desperation, but the ever-present need to survive in a place where food was never guaranteed. The Arctic isn't generous. It doesn't lay fruit at your feet. It makes you earn every meal. And so, you learn to use everything. Render fat from seals, caribou, or even fish. Gather berries during the brief, bursting summer. Whip it all together with snow or ice, sometimes with a bit of meat or fish liver oil added in for heft. Not what you'd expect from something called ice cream. But then again, this isn't the supermarket variety. Historians still argue about the origins. Some believe akutak was a post-hunt celebration dish, a reward after successful seal trips. Others say it was medicine, used to nourish sick elders or recovering mothers. But if you ask the people here, they'll simply say, "We made what we needed, and we made it good." And good doesn't always mean sweet. The word akutak means mixing together. That's it, a simple verb, not a brand, not a product, a process. You watch another bowl being passed. This one's darker crowberries, perhaps, or black currant. The fat this time is from moose. It smells faintly earthy, like wet fur in deep ground. A man beside you begins stirring again. Not because it needs more mixing, but because stirring is part of the ritual. The rhythm matters. The care, the warmth of your hand on the bowl. Even as the food itself remains cold, you imagine doing this for the first time. You, alone in the wind, whipping fat with your bare hands, every gust threatening to steal your ingredients, every drop of oil precious. You'd stir fast, not knowing. You'd spill, you'd waste, you'd fail, and someone older, quieter would step in, show you the pace, show you how to cup your fingers to shield the wind, how to time your breath with the stir. Because this isn't cooking, it's remembering. There's a story about a grandmother who could whip akutak so finely, it held its shape for days without freezing solid. She said the trick was to hum while stirring, not a song. Exactly, just vibration, a lullaby for the mixture. They say her hands were so strong from years of stirring. She once broke a dog sled rope with her grip alone. You glance at the woman now folding snow into the bowl. Maybe it's her, or her daughter, or someone who carries that hum in their hands. You look around the circle. Everyone has their job. One prepares the fat. Another checks the storage pits. Someone else gathers snow, not just any snow, but the right kind. Light, dry, clean, too wet, and the mix goes soggy, too packed, and it turns to ice. It's an art, and you can't learn it by reading. It's passed like the bowl itself, hand to hand, not headline to headline. They let you help. You're handed a stone bowl, half full of pale pink fat, already partially mixed. It's heavier than you expect. You dip your fingers in, begin to stir, slowly, clockwise, then back again. The mixture resists you at first, but then begins to shift, loosen, smooth. Someone hums nearby. You don't know the tune, but you follow. Your arms are tired, not sore in the usual sense, but heavy, humming, as if they've been enlisted into something older than you. Stirring akutak is not fast work. It's not flashy. It doesn't snap and hiss like fire or sizzle like a roast. It's slow, steady labor, the kind that builds up heat in your shoulders and calm in your chest. You keep going, the motion hypnotic. The cold air brushes your cheeks, but your palms are warm from friction. Around you, no one is speaking, only the sounds of breathing, stirring, and distant wind. In this kind of silence, you notice things, the shape of a bowl rim smoothed by generations, the way the fat holds the snow differently depending on its age, the sound of your heartbeat between turns. You're not just making food, you're entering a rhythm, a kind of conversation. One woman sets a new bowl beside you, this one filled with a deeper orange fat and smaller berries. Salmon berries, someone murmurs, picked last summer, kept cool inside a caribou hide, stitched shut and buried beneath a ridge of moss and stone. No jars, no labels, just memory. The best storage, they tell you, isn't a structure, it's a story. You have to remember where you placed each bundle. You mark it with rocks, with shadows, with intuition. One woman says she can feel where her food is underground, like how some people feel the rain coming. Historians still argue whether such cache systems were individually mapped or collectively managed. But here, the answer seems to be both. You remember your own, but you also know your cousins, your neighbors. You don't take, but you know, just in case. You glance over to a snow mound, marked by a ring of pebbles. That's someone's dessert, kept cool, safe, shared later. You return to stirring. Your mix is nearly ready now, thickening, holding its shape with pride. You dip your fingers in and taste, still fatty, but now the berries shine. Bright, almost citrusy. You smile. One of the elders taps the side of the bowl, not to correct but to approve. That's how you know you've done well. No words, just the tap. You lift your bowl and carry it toward the cache. It's a simple hole about as wide as your shoulders, dug into the frozen earth. Inside, shelves made of flat stone and bent wood. You place your bowl beside others. There's space, but not much. The contents glisten, reflecting pale light from the open lid. Then, carefully, you cover it again. Seal skin, bark, more snow. It doesn't look like much when closed, but inside, a gallery of effort, art, flavor. You sit back and press your cold hands to your cheeks. Around you, the group is finishing their own bowls. One woman sings quietly as she stirs. Another child sneaks a taste and is gently scolded with a glance. You wonder what this moment would look like to someone from the South. Someone standing here for the first time, expecting a freezer and a scoop and maybe a maraschino cherry. They'd miss it. They'd miss the quiet, the care, the sheer human brilliance of storing ice cream without any ice machines at all. They'd ask, but how do you keep it frozen? And someone here would shrug and say, we just do, because they know. They don't need voltage. They need winter. And winter, here, never forgets its job. You lie back in the snow, your head cushioned by your mittens. The sky above you is deepening, hints of purple curling at the edges. The fire crackles nearby, scenting the air with seal fat and wood smoke. You close your eyes, and you think about how some things are only possible when you stop trying to force them, when you work with the world, not against it. A breeze crosses your face. The earth beneath you is frozen solid, and somewhere, deep in a cold cache beside your bowl, a sweet, strange mix rests ready for tomorrow. Still soft, still perfect, still exactly as it was meant to be. The next morning begins not with sunrise, but with a subtle shift in the air, a slight easing of the cold, a hush that settles even deeper than silence. You blink awake inside a small shelter of packed snow and hide cozy, compact, warmed from breath and body heat. You sit up slowly, limbs still loose from sleep, and smell smoke curling from the hearth nearby. Outside, the world is white and wide again, but something's changed. It's time for another batch. Not for hunger, for ceremony. You emerge into the light and stretch, joints clicking like ancient tools pulled from the snow. Others are already up, preparing for the gathering later that evening. No one says much. The work speaks for itself. Fires are lit. Berries are pulled from caches. Fat is rendered again, this time with more care, more precision. Today's akutak isn't for daily use. It's for something bigger. Maybe a naming ceremony. Maybe someone's first successful hunt. Or maybe, quietly, an elder's last meal. You don't ask. You just work. You help gather snow, not just any snow. Today, you need fresh drift, wind-pressed, light, dry. One woman tests it with her palm, pressing gently, then lifting. It flakes perfectly. Approved. Someone else brings out tools. A flat bone for scraping. A carved wooden scoop passed down for 3 generations. It has a tiny crack near the handle, filled with resin and memory. You begin mixing again. This time, the fat is seal-based, thicker and more pungent than before. The berries are golden cloudberries, rare, sweet in an almost floral way. The combination is intense. It blooms on the tongue like a story unfolding too quickly. You stir longer than usual. The rhythm matters. You're told to match your breath to the motions. Stir in one direction, then reverse, then again. The air is still around you, and all you hear is breath, muscle, and snow. Someone hums again, a low tune. Not a lullaby, more like a heartbeat. Akutak is more than food. Here, it's a gift, a mark of respect. If you bring it to someone, you're saying, I used my strength for you. If they accept it, they're saying, you've done well. Refusing akutak, unless you have reason, is like refusing a hand offered in peace. Historians still argue whether akutak was ever used to seal social agreements, marriages, apologies, truces, but elders here say it's always had meaning. It's how you offer it, in what bowl, with what berries, who stirred it. When you glance across the snowfield, a group of children is helping carry wrapped bundles from the cache. Their hands are red, but they don't complain. They've been told this batch is important. A boy whispers to you, it's for our grandfather. You nod once, and your stirring slows. You remember now. He's the one who taught your friend how to mix seal oil without bitterness. The one who could name berries just by smell. The one who, last winter, joked that his favorite flavor was whatever doesn't freeze my teeth first. He's old now, tired. Today's batch is for him, not to cure. Just to honor, you stir longer. You taste the mixture, and it's richer than anything so far. Cloudberries burst against the tongue. The fat is smooth. The snow melts with grace. It's perfect, and so you scoop it into a wide bowl, the offering kind, decorated with a ring of carved dots, each one marking a full moon. It's passed from hand to hand until it reaches the hearth. No one eats yet, not until he arrives, and he does, carried by two sons, walking slowly, wrapped in sealskin. He's thin, eyes sharp, smile even sharper. He sits with care, takes the bowl, and tastes. He says nothing. Then he lifts his spoon, taps the bowl once lightly. Everyone exhales. He nods. It is good. And now the others begin. You eat quietly, reverently. Each bite is like a memory called home. Some laugh softly. One woman cries into her bowl. No one mocks her. This is a goodbye, or maybe a celebration, or both. Later, as you walk to return the empty bowls, you glance toward the cache once more. The stone lid glistens with frost. Inside, other bowls wait. For another time, another ceremony. Still cold, still held, still perfectly preserved. The snow begins falling again. Not heavy, just a soft dust that makes the world feel muffled. Slower, like someone turned down the volume on everything but your breath. Each flake lands like a secret, disappearing into white that was already perfect. You carry the empty bowls back to the edge of the settlement, one in each hand, and pause by the cache just to check. You remove the stone lid carefully. Inside, bowls, skins, wrapped bundles of summer berries sleeping in darkness. The cold reaches up instantly, brushing your face like a curious ghost. Everything is as it should be. You close it again, sealing the cold in, sealing the memory. Today has reminded you that akutak isn't just something eaten, it's something shared. And where there's sharing, there's protecting, because no one stirs all that fattened snow only to have it spoiled. Which is why you're now standing next to a girl named Aluki, staring at what appears to be a cache that's been raided. Something took the bundle. Or someone. The snow around the cache tells part of the story. Large paw prints, wide and deep, spaced too far apart to be a fox, too erratic for a sled dog. You glance at Aluki. Wolves, she mutters. You nod. Or maybe a bear. Either way, your dessert is someone else's now. This is part of life in the north. Food isn't just vulnerable to spoilage, it's vulnerable to interest. The world around you is alive, and everything hungry. If you don't store something right, or mark it properly, or dig deep enough, the cold won't save it, but fur and fangs will find it. So, you help rebury what's left, and then you begin again. New hole, deeper, this time lined with seal bone and branches soaked in ash, scented to throw off any curious snouts. You learn to pack snow with different pressures, how to angle the lid just enough so meltwater runs off. Not in, historians still argue how much Inuit cache building was deliberate engineering versus instinctual adaptation. But watching a Lukey press layers of snow in alternating thicknesses, you don't see instinct. You see architecture. A freezer doesn't have to hum to be smart. It just has to remember. You go with her to collect more berries. Not fresh, nothing grows now, but last season's cloudberry stash, stored in a pit her grandfather dug near the edge of the tundra. She finds it with no markings, just memory. She paces 13 steps from a cracked boulder, kneels, digs, and uncovers a bundle wrapped in stretched hide. Inside, the berries are perfect, still firm, still golden, still tasting of the sun. You ask how she remembers the spot. I just know, she shrugs. I always know. The path back is windier now. Snow gusts sideways, stinging the corners of your eyes. Marcus Aurelius wouldn't like this weather. You think about your donkey friend back in Rome, the sponge merchant's loyal companion. You wonder how he'd do in this land. Probably not well, not without layers, not without snow legs. Back at the village, you bury the new bundle inside the redug cache. This one's deeper, safer. The layer of moss you lay over it feels like a promise. And just as you're finishing, someone shouts, a child. Across the way, waving a hand and grinning, she's found another bowl. Not in a cache, just buried, almost forgotten. Beneath an old sled, they bring it to the fire, crack the seal. It's akutak, still fresh, possibly months old. You can smell the berries, still bright beneath the fat. It's softer now, slightly fermented, richer than before. Like age has made it bolder. They share it. And as the bowl circles, someone murmurs, "It tastes like my mother's wedding." You smile. Because of course it does. Food, here, keeps stories frozen, and every bite thaws a little more of them. The wind dies down just before nightfall, as if exhaling after a long day of pushing snow through the open spaces between memory and bone. You step outside your shelter and stretch, watching the last light stretch low across the ice, gold melting into blue. It's a quiet night, but something's happening. You hear laughter, not loud or chaotic, but layered generational. The kind of laughter that begins as a chuckle from a child and echoes in the belly of an elder. You follow it, curious, and come upon a fire circle tucked into the lee of a snowbank. Blocking the breeze, women sit cross-legged, passing a bowl. It's akutak, of course, but this batch is special, not because of ingredients. Because of context, they're telling stories now, not the loud ones. No epics of heroism or bears wrestled into submission. These are small tales, the kind that cling to food like steam to a bowl. The first time I stirred akutak and forgot the snow, one woman says, shaking her head. We ate it anyway. Everyone laughs. It tasted like confusion. Another woman shares how she once used wrong fat dog fat by mistake and only realized when the flavor hit her cousin so hard. He cried. From joy or betrayal, no one's quite sure. You're invited to sit. You accept. The bowl comes your way, and with it, another kind of offering, one you can't quite touch. You taste, of course, but mostly you listen, and slowly you realize this is how akutak is passed down, not in recipes, in anecdotes. There's no standard ratio, no exact list, only memory and mistakes. Historians still argue how consistent akutak recipes were from village to village. Some claim strong regional identity. Others argue it changed from family to family, even batch to batch. But here, everyone agrees on one thing. No two mixes are ever quite the same. And that's the point. There's a story about a girl who stirred akutak so hard during a storm that it froze while she mixed it. They called it ice lightning, and the name stuck. No one remembers what it tasted like. Only how hard they laughed when she chipped it out of the bowl with a hunting knife. You stir your own bowl slowly, copying the rhythm of the woman beside you. She doesn't look, but she notices, she hums. The night deepens. Someone passes a carved ladle older than anyone present and uses it to serve the last few bites. The ladle has a hairline cracked down the side, carefully sealed with sinew and pitch. A scar. Like most tools here, it's both practical and ceremonial, functional and full of meaning. You ask about it quietly. It belonged to my grandmother's sister. The woman tells you, she stirred the first bowl I ever tasted. The way she says it, it's as if she's describing a cathedral. You hold your breath for a moment, because something's settling into you now, something beyond flavor. It's the understanding that in this cold place, preservation isn't about freezing. It's about remembering. The cold just helps it last longer. You think about the caches, how each one holds not just food, but moments. That berry mix from your first batch. Someone might find it months from now. A child might taste it. A widow might stir it into a ceremony. Or maybe no one touches it, but the fact that it's there, sleeping in the ground. That matters too. Like a letter written in fat and snow, sealed in earth, delivered by time. You close your eyes and lean back, listening to the last stories wind down. Someone speaks about a wedding where no one brought berries, so they used fish eggs instead. It was horrible, she says with pride. Everyone laughs. The bowl is empty now, but the fire is still warm, and your hands still carry the scent of something slow, something shared. Something that can't be rushed. You stand, thank the circle, and walk back through the packed snow paths that wind between caches and shelters. The wind picks up again, just a little more lullaby than warning, and overhead, the stars appear. You think, maybe the cold isn't the opposite of warmth. Maybe it's what makes warmth possible. You wake to a different kind of silence, not the kind that weighs heavily, but one that invites listening. The air feels thinner, the snow outside perfectly smooth, like the wind has paused for breath and left everything gently in place. Today, the work is lighter, no ceremony, no mourning, no urgent batches to prepare, just the quiet continuation of living. And in the Arctic, even living quietly takes effort. You help with firewood, first gathering drift logs from a pile shaped by wind. The bark is curled from freeze-thaw cycles, gray and sharp-edged, but dry inside. Good fuel. As you stack it, you catch sight of a young boy carrying a small bundle across the snow. It's wrapped tightly in hide, held close to his chest. You follow him to a storage mound, a new one, smaller than the others. Inside, you find out why. It's his first personal cache. He's 9. Today, he's storing his own akutak. You help him dig careful, slow, methodical. He explains each step like a teacher. You have to dig lower on the south side, he says, because the sun hits it less in spring. He points to where moss should go, how the snow should be pressed. He even has his own sealskin lid, stitched by his aunt. There's pride in every motion. You watch him lower the bundle into the ground. His hands shake a little, but he doesn't drop it. He covers it precisely, not one corner uncovered. And then he marks the cache with a fishbone stuck upright in the snow. It points home. He explains. You nod. Smart. He shrugs, pretending not to smile. This isn't just food storage. It's identity, ownership, responsibility. Historians still argue at what age children took part in food preservation practices. Some say only in adolescence. Others point to oral accounts of even toddlers helping gather berries. But here, there's no debate. You help as soon as you can walk. Maybe sooner. The boy runs off. You stay a moment longer, just looking at the little marker fishbone waving slightly in the breeze, and think about how easy it would be to lose a cache like this. Just one snowfall and the whole thing vanishes from sight. Unless you remember. That's the secret here. Not technology, not temperature, memory. That's the freezer. That's the system. You walk back toward the center of camp and spot someone unpacking a new delivery. A hunter returned this morning with caribou fat. A heavy bundle, wrapped in skin, still warm at the core. It'll be rendered down, strained, cooled, then stored or stirred into fresh akutak. You help carry it. It's heavier than it looks, dense with energy. You think back to your earliest bites, how that weight settled in your stomach. Slow-burning fuel wrapped in sweetness, not sugary nonsense, functional delight. The rendering process is slow. Fat chunks are sliced, placed into a carved basin over fire-heated stones. The smell rises sharp, almost gamey. It clings to your clothes, your skin, even your eyelashes. One woman says it's the smell of strength. Another says it's just Tuesday. Once it's done, the fat is poured into cooled bowls, stirred as it thickens, and just like that, another ingredient is ready. It will be eaten, or stored, or both. Later, you sit with an elder who's sewing sealskin mitts by the fire. You ask her what happens to caches no one returns to. She doesn't look up. The land remembers. You think that's poetic. She means it literally. You leave something, she says. It freezes. The snow keeps it. Sometimes we find it next season. Sometimes in 5 years, and it's still good. She shrugs. If the seal skin holds, there's a story she tells of a cache from her childhood left behind during a long migration. They returned years later, and the berries inside were perfect. We called it lucky dessert. You smile. You ask if she's ever lost a cache. She nods. More than one. But sometimes I think maybe someone else found it. Maybe they needed it. You watch the fire flicker in her eyes, dancing with years. Not everything in this world is meant to last. But some things, they're buried deep enough to survive. Even sweetness, even this. By midday, the air begins to shift again. A breeze rolls in from the west, carrying with it the faint scent of something woodsy, distant driftwood, maybe, or the thawed edges of a frozen lake. It's not warm, not by most standards, but here it hints at change, and change means it's time to check the caches again. Not because they've spoiling in this cold takes a lot of effort, but because animals can be persistent. You walk with 2 others, each holding a sharpened stick and a small toolkit hooks, string, even a sliver of soapstone used to reseal lids. The caches are not hidden from view exactly, but they are subtle, marked only by memory. Small bones, a distinct curve in the drift. At the first pit, you all stop. Something's off. The lid has shifted, just a little. Enough that the snow around it is slightly melted and refrozen like something breathed there. You kneel, brush it clean, and lift the cover. Inside, untouched. But that's not always the case. There's a quiet story told here of another village, years ago, where an entire feast's worth of akutak was stored beneath a flat rock. In the night, a polar bear found it, dug with massive paws, and devoured everything. The villagers discovered the remains lids licked clean, snow trampled, the scent of berry and brine lingering like the ghost of dessert. They laughed. Eventually, even apex predators, it seems, appreciate a good mix. This time, though, there's no tragedy. You reseal the cache and pack fresh snow around it, tighter than before. The process becomes second nature. Feel, lift, check, close. These movements are part of the rhythm of living here, just like fishing or hunting or stitching. And like everything else, they're passed down without fanfare. Historians still argue whether these food storage methods qualify as technology. Some dismiss them as too simple. But you know better now. You've seen how snow is pressed, how sealskin breathes, how airflow is managed, how scent is masked. This isn't primitive. This is perfected. You move to the next site. It's deeper, hidden beneath a curved ridge of ice. The lid is frozen solid, and it takes effort to crack it free inside. However, the reward is immediate: 2 wrapped bundles, both still firm, still sealed. One woman opens hers. You pause as she peels away the layers hide. Moss, another thinner skin, and then berries, not frozen into a clump, not icy or bruised, just soft enough to yield to the touch, just bright enough to whisper, "I remember the sun." She offers one to you. You taste it. It's summer in a single bite. Not metaphorically, actually. You close your eyes and see it. Tundra hills bursting with orange cloudberries. Children squatting low to gather, hands stained, mouths full. You feel the warmth in your chest, even as the snow drifts around your boots. And you think, this is what it means to preserve something. Not just food, but feeling later. You help build a new cache not because it's needed immediately, but because someone's thinking ahead. The boy from earlier returns, proudly showing a string of fish he's caught. He wants to save them, for trade, for a cousin's visit, or just for later. The cache is dug with care, lined with flat stones this time. The placement matters. Too close to the fire circle and the ground softens. Too far and you risk snowdrift, burying it completely. It's like planting a memory, and the harvest comes much later. You bury the fish, tie the lid, and mark it with a carved stick. His initials. He beams. You sit nearby and sip a cup of broth, rich with seal oil. Not akutuk, not today. But the warmth in your hands reminds you that sweetness here takes many forms. Before sleep, you pass one last cache. It's small, old, half covered in frost. You don't open it. You just nod. It's enough to know it's there, still sealed, still safe, still waiting. That night, you dream of berries, not just the taste of them, but the glow. You're standing in a tundra valley at midsummer, and the light never fully fades. Orange cloudberries swell between your fingers, warm and firm, each one sticky with sunlight. You pick them gently, quickly, placing them into a seal bladder, half filled with cool water. Across the field, someone hums. The song is low and winding, like wind threading through grass. When you wake, you still taste the dream on your tongue. Outside, the air is still, but the sky is shifting again, thin streaks of cloud trailing toward the horizon. A change is coming. Spring, perhaps, or the closest thing to it. People begin to talk about the caches in new tones, less about protection, more about retrieval. What to bring up, what to share, what to keep sealed just a little longer. It's a balance between generosity and practicality, between holding on and letting go. You help dig one out mid-morning. The lid cracks open, revealing 3 bundles. One is marked with small fish bones tied like a necklace. It's a family mark, identifying who stored it. Ownership matters here, but so does sharing, and knowing when one must soften into the other. The akutak inside is mixed with goose fat, and blackberries rare, dense, almost syrupy. You take just a little, enough to carry the flavor forward into memory. The rest is rewrapped, reburied. One elder explains it like this: akutak is like a voice. If you use it too much, it fades. If you never use it, it's forgotten. So you taste, then wait. You think about that. A dessert that teaches patience. Imagine that on a cafe menu. Historians still argue how much of Inuit cuisine was structured around restraint. But restraint, here, is survival. If you eat too much, someone else goes without. If you hoard too long, something spoils, so you learn the art of just enough. That afternoon, a new batch is mixed not for a ceremony, not for a guest, just because someone misses the taste. A grandmother sits by the fire, stirring slowly, her hands scarred but steady. She sings as she works. The akutak is different this time, made from dried salmon, moose fat, and rehydrated berries. You hesitate at first, fish and dessert, but then you remember this isn't a southern Sunday. This is north. You try a bite, and it surprises you. Not sweet, not savory whole, rich, familiar, like something you once knew in another life. Or maybe something your body's been waiting for. The grandmother watches you chew. Now you know, she says, and you do. Because this batch isn't about flavor. It's about memory. It tastes like long winters, old songs, and stories that don't translate but still stick. Later, as the fire burns low, someone opens another cache, not food. This time, inside are tools, ladles, stirring bowls, bundles of dried herbs used in flavoring. A woman unwraps one carefully. The ladle is worn smooth by years of use, its handle wrapped in sinew for grip. Mine now, she says, and everyone nods, passing it down, the way everything is, the way a kutak is. And when the stars rise soft, silver, scattered across a sky too wide for counting, you press your fingers to your lips, still sticky with seal fat and berries, and whisper thanks. Thanks for the cold. Thanks for the hands that taught you to stir. Thanks for the taste that lingers, long after the bowl is empty. The weather warms by a single degree. You wouldn't notice it on a thermometer if there even was one, but the land feels it. The snow softens ever so slightly beneath your boots. The wind carries a new scent, moss, maybe, or damp stone. You see it in the way people move, a little faster, a little more alert. Because when things begin to thaw, the caches matter even more. You help dig out a half-forgotten pit near the edge of the village. It was sealed tight before winter, wrapped in bark and hide, then covered in snow. But the bark has split just slightly, letting in moisture. What was once perfectly preserved is now on the edge of turning. You uncover the bundle with care. Inside, a batch of akutak still cool, but the color has dulled. The smell is slightly sour, still edible, but not for long. You bring it to the hearth. No shame, no scolding. This happens. The woman who stirred it months ago nods and says, "Today." Then it's served with quiet joy, no waste. This, too, is part of the rhythm. You taste it, it's sharper than the others, tingier, like a memory that's trying not to fade, a reminder. Even ice cream, even history, has a lifespan. That afternoon, a group of children ask to make their first batch, not a ceremonial one, a playful one. They call it Snowball Akutak. You help them gather ingredients, berry paste, seal oil, and a small bowl of dry fish flakes someone thought to add for crunch. You hide your expression. They mix with too much snow, not enough fat, and far too much enthusiasm. But the result, surprisingly decent. It tastes like childhood. Someone saves a bowl to bury. Their first cache. You help dig. Not deep, this is practice, but you guide their hands. Show them how to pack the walls, how to seal the lid with moss. You press their mark into the snow, a fishtail and a handprint. They beam. Historians still debate whether food caches were marked with individual family signs or shared village symbols. You've learned it's both. Sometimes a carved stone, sometimes just a story attached to a shape in the snow. As the day fades, you follow an elder on a walk. She carries a small pouch. Inside, dried berries. Not for eating, for planting. She stops beside a thawing patch of ground near a slope where water runs below the ice. "This is a good spot," she says. She presses the berries into the soil and covers them gently. Not much, just enough to try. You ask, will they grow? Maybe, and that's enough. Because here, even maybe is worth the effort. She tells you about her grandmother who once planted a row of wild herbs along the edge of her family's favorite cache, so we'd always know where it was, and so it would smell good when we opened it. You imagine it. Unsealing a lid and being greeted not just by cold fat and berries, but the faint scent of summer. You return to camp with quiet steps. The fire burns low. The children sleep near their snowball cache. Proud, you sit by the hearth, slowly cleaning the ladles. The cracks in the wood catch the firelight. One is bound with sinew, another with string dyed red from last year's currants. You wonder what future meal will be stirred with them. Who will taste it? Who will remember? Outside, the air turns sharp again. A warning. The melt is not here yet, but soon, and when it comes, the caches will have to go deeper. The memories will have to go further. But tonight, everything still holds. The morning begins with a knock. Not on wood or door, there are few of those here, but the soft, purposeful stomp of boots on packed snow. You lift the hide flap of your shelter and peek outside to find a young woman, wind-chapped and grinning, holding a bowl wrapped in sealskin. She gestures for you to come. You follow. She leads you beyond the ridge, to a smaller camp, quieter, newer, visitors, extended family, or perhaps another clan come for a seasonal gathering. And today, they're sharing their version of akutak. It looks different, paler, smoother, nearly white. No berries, no meat, just fat, maybe a little snow. She explains, this is early winter akutak, the kind made before harvest, before the berries, before the fat stores are high enough to be generous. Survival ice cream. It tastes plain, but clean. The texture is almost silky and strangely satisfying. You eat it with flat fingers, pinching it into bite-sized curls and setting each on your tongue like a ritual. It melts slowly, warming first, then vanishing. They call it quiet mouth food because it doesn't need praise. It just works. Later, someone brings out a more unusual mix, bird fat, a touch of tundra mint, and the yellow berries from last spring's riverbank. It's sharper, almost spicy. You take a bite and your eyebrows lift involuntarily. The woman laughs and claps her hands. Wekapakutak, she calls it. Everyone laughs. Even ice cream has moods here. Historians still argue whether the many variations of akutak reflect different tribal identities or just resource availability. But from what you've seen, it's both a blend of landscape, lineage, and personality. Some like it dense and heavy, others soft and light, some with meat, some with none. Each batch tells you who made it, and maybe who they love. You're asked to make your own. You hesitate. They insist. So you gather what's available, some leftover moose fat, a pinch of dried berries, and, in a moment of boldness, a spoonful of someone's tangy fish paste. You stir slowly, the way you've been taught. You hum, even though your tune wanders. You fold the snow in gently, watching for the moment when it stops resisting and starts becoming. It happens sooner than you expect. You offer the first bite to the woman who brought you here. She tastes, nods. It's strange, she says, but strong. You take that as a compliment. Someone calls for the tasting spoons carved from driftwood, smooth as bone. Each person gets a bite. They offer feedback in nods, chuckles, or a simple Your akutak makes its way around the fire, and when it returns, the bowl is empty. That's all you need to know. Later, you help bury the leftovers carefully, with the same reverence you've seen every day since arriving. The cache here is lined with birch bark, a rare treat. The lid is thick, weighted with stones, and marked with a curved stick tied with red thread. They won't forget it. Neither will you. As you walk back to your own camp, someone hands you a small pouch inside, a tiny carved spoon, yours now. To remember how you stirred, you tuck it away like a treasure. Not because it's beautiful, because it's earned. At the fire that evening, you pass the spoon from hand to hand. Everyone wants to feel the balance, the weight, and in each person's fingers, it becomes part of the story. This is how a kutak spreads, not by conquest or recipe book, by spoon, by laughter, by a quiet bite passed between strangers until they're not strangers anymore. You fall asleep that night with the pouch still in your hand, dreaming of fat and snow and the warmth of people who know how to keep things cold without ever losing their warmth. The sun lingers just a little longer on the horizon today. It's subtle, you almost don't notice it, but the sky holds its light, like someone reluctant to say goodbye. A long winter is slowly unraveling, and with each additional minute of sun, the world begins to stretch awake. But that doesn't mean it's time to celebrate. Not yet. It means it's time to check everything. Because thaw comes slow and then all at once. And when it does, the caches, those perfect little pockets of frozen memory, can become flooded, invaded, or worse, forgotten. So today's task is simple. Visit every cache, every last one. You walk with a group of 4. All carry tools, sticks, cords, spare bark lids, fresh moss. One woman carries a dog with a nose so sharp she can tell if a cache is compromised just by how the air shifts when it opens. The work is slow. You kneel at each mound, brush off snow, lift the sealskin flap. Sometimes you're met with pristine fat, still cool and firm, berry bundles intact. Other times, you find softness where there shouldn't be, or moisture where there should be powder. And once, maggots. Just a few, but enough to know that batch is gone. No one curses, no one gasps. They just nod, rewrap what can be salvaged, and move on. This is part of it. Historians still argue how much was lost in caches each year. But those who live this life will tell you you always lose some. And that's why you store enough, why you share, why every batch of a kutak made isn't just for today or for one person. It's a hedge against tomorrow. One elder points out a cache no one remembers. The marker stick has snapped. No one can recall whose it was. You help dig it out. Inside, a sealed bowl wrapped in layers you don't recognize. It takes time to open, but when you do, the smell hits first. Berries. So many berries. Summer frozen in time. There's a piece of dyed cloth inside, 2 marking it as a gift that was never delivered. They pause, and then they taste it, and someone smiles through tears. This was hers, the elder says, pressing her palm flat to the snow. They pass the bowl around. Nothing's said, but everyone remembers. Later, someone places a new marker, a carved stick with a small amulet tied to the top, not just to find the cache again, but to honor what it was. A message from the past that finally found its mouth. You think of your own batch, the one buried days ago, marked with string and story. What will it taste like in a month, or a year, or to someone you'll never meet? That's the strange gift of cold. It holds what you're not ready to carry, and sometimes it holds it until someone else is. As the sun sinks low again, you walk back slowly. The world is glowing just slightly with the kind of light that feels earned. And at your fire that night, someone makes a fresh bowl not for storage, but for now. This one is mixed with reindeer fat and blueberries. It's sweet for once, sweet in a way that surprises you. You ask why. The elder smiles. Because we're still here. And you realize this isn't just about preserving food. It's about preserving the ability to taste joy, even when things are hard, even when they melt. You begin the next day before the sun has fully returned. There's a quiet you've grown to love here, the kind that doesn't press you for answers or demand movement. It just sits with you, like the snow, like the cold, like the unopened cache that waits near the fire ring. its top dusted with last night's flurries. Someone left it for you. You recognize the tie, simple red twine made from sinew and dyed with berry juice. A quiet thank you from the children you helped days ago. Inside, a single scoop of their snowball akutak, now slightly firmed, slightly matured. It tastes like pride, like effort, like sticky fingers that worked too fast and cared too much. You smile as you eat it. Even imperfect ice cream has a place in this world. The elders gather today to retell the food laws, not written on scrolls or chiseled in stone, but spoken aloud, slowly, rhythmically. They do this every spring, not to teach, but to remind, because preservation isn't just about the caches. It's about people knowing when to take, when to wait, when to give away the last bowl, even when you're still hungry. One woman stands and recites the rules of mixing. Don't stir with anger. Don't serve the first scoop to yourself. Don't bury alone. Don't forget to taste before you share. They sound simple, but like most truths, they only seem that way from a distance. You help someone rewrap a bundle of fat. It's beginning to sweat. A hint, not yet a threat. You reinforce it with fresh snow. Pack it tighter. Dig a little deeper. The person beside you thanks you not with words, but by placing a sprig of sage on top of the sealed cache. It's a gesture older than thank you. Historians still argue how widespread akutak traditions were, how far they reached across the Arctic. Some trace connections to Siberia. Others insist they're uniquely North American. But here, where the cold still tells time and fat still sings when stirred, the answer doesn't matter, because whether it began 200 years ago or two, it continues. You return to your shelter midday and find your spoon again, the small one carved for you. You run your thumb over the groove in the handle. A thought strikes. Maybe you should bury it, not out of loss, but to return it to the cycle. You ask around. The idea is met with nods. You dig the hole near a moss patch deep enough, lined with stone. The spoon is wrapped in hide, tied with a thread of wolf fur. As you press it into the earth, you whisper something small. You're not sure what it is. A word, a breath, a thank you to cold. Then you cover it, not to hide, but to hold that night. Someone opens the oldest cache in the village. No one knows exactly what's inside. It hasn't been touched in years. The lid is thick with ice. You help chisel. The crack of frost breaking sounds like a drum. You lift the top. Inside, 3 bowls. 1 split, 1 empty, and 1 still full. The akutak is darker than any you've seen, almost gray. A strange mix of aged fat, possibly muskox, and berries long out of season. You expect rot, but when the eldest among you takes a bite, she closes her eyes, smiles, and says, "It's him," her husband, long past. The mix he used to make. She shares a scoop with each person around the fire. The bowl is passed like an heirloom. No one says much, because they don't need to. Some flavors are memories, and some memories never melt. Tonight, the wind shifts again, not with the bite of winter, but with a softness that feels unfamiliar, the kind of breeze that carries distant thaw in its folds. You wake before the others, drawn outside by a feeling you can't quite name. The sky is streaked with a gray that promises water. You know what this means. It's time to close the caches, not forever, just for the season, because when the melt comes, the earth above the permafrost turns to slush, caches flood, lids collapse, and carefully preserved gifts like berry-laced fat and ancient flavor can be lost in a single careless hour. So, before the land can forget, you help remember. You work all morning with others unearthing, checking, resealing, and redigging deeper pits for the most precious bundles. Some are carried to higher ground. Others are eaten now, honored with quiet meals. Their flavor sharp from age but never wasteful. One cache is opened to reveal a forgotten bundle wrapped in violet-stained cloth. A child gasps. It's theirs, a birthday mix they made last season and never claimed. It's still cold, still intact. You let them taste it. The look on their face, like hearing a song you forgot you loved. You help them bury what's left again. But this time, in a new cache, one they mark with driftwood and a small stone carved into a heart. You think of your spoon, still beneath the moss, still waiting. The afternoon brings a final gathering. People sit in a wide circle, not for eating but naming. They go around, listing caches by memory, what's inside, who owns it, when it should be checked. The list is long. No one writes it down. It's all spoken, and as it's spoken, you realize this isn't just inventory. It's an act of protection, of continuity. Historians still wonder how indigenous Arctic communities tracked food with such accuracy. You've seen the answer now. It's not maps, not codes. It's each other. Later, you help close your last cache. It contains your small experimental batch, still firm, still oddly shaped from your haphazard stirring. You smooth the snow over it one last time and place a tiny carved stone atop nothing fancy. Just enough. Enough to say, I was here. I made this. It mattered. That evening, the final bowl of akutak is passed. No occasion. No hituao. Just a circle of hands and mouths and stories. It's made from spring-carried fat and last summer's blueberries. It's light, whipped high, almost frothy. It tastes like air after snow, like the last quiet of winter before the melt roars in. The elder who tasted her husband's akutak speaks again. She holds the last spoonful in her palm, watching it melt slowly in the warmth of her skin. Then, gently, she presses it to the ground. Let the land have its share, she says. You fall asleep under a sky that won't darken. Spring is coming. The world is changing again. But somewhere beneath the snow, beneath the moss, beneath the skin and bark and stone, something soft still waits. Something cold, sweet, strange, and sacred. Something preserved. And the people who made it, they'll return for it. When it's time, you awaken to the sound of running water. At first, you think it's a dream, something imagined from a distant forest. But as you pull back the hide flap and step into the pale morning, you hear it again. Steady, whispering, alive. A narrow stream, no wider than your palm, has begun trickling down the slope behind the camp. The thaw has begun, and with it, a new urgency. Everyone is up early. Not rushed, but focused, because with melting comes movement, not just of people, but of earth, of snow, of memory. Caches that have rested all winter now face time's oldest threat, impermanence. Today, your task is a hard one. You're helping relocate one of the oldest caches in the village. It sits beneath a ridge, half hidden by rock and willow branches. It's been used for years, decades. Even and its contents have grown strange with time. A mix of ceremonial akutak, old tools, woven cloths, and a single bowl no one's touched since the birth of a child now nearly grown. You dig carefully. The meltwater has already seeped into the upper layers. The snow is slushy. The seal's skin around the lid has softened. Not ruined, not yet, but this cache won't last another week. You open it gently. Inside, a scent that stops you, berries and smoke and something old. Not rotten, just aged, like a room long closed, or the first page of an unread letter. An elder kneels beside you. She reaches in with both hands and lifts out the ceremonial bowl. Her fingers tremble. She breathes in the scent and smiles. He was born to this, she says. She's talking about the boy now tall, now strong, who stands behind her, eyes lowered, remembering this was his first gift, akutak mixed for him, stored for him, held in the ground like a blessing frozen in time. You help move the contents. Each item is wrapped again in new cloth, sealed in hide, and buried further up the ridge. A new cache, drier, safer, a place for memory to rest a little longer. The boy helps lower the bowl. The elder hums something low, the same song she sang when she first stirred that akutak all those years ago. You pack the snow tighter, you seal it, and then you walk away, not to forget it, but to let it rest. Historians still debate how much of indigenous Arctic food practice is spiritual versus practical. But you know now it's both. When something stays buried that long, untouched, it becomes more than calories. It becomes witness. Later, back at the hearth, someone shares a fresh bowl. This one is experimental rendered goose fat, early blueberries, and dried rose petals. Unusual, fragrant, soft as moss. You taste it and blink. It's floral, savory, strange. You love it. That night, someone suggests you stir a final batch of your own before the thaw takes the snow. They say, before the old cold forgets. You agree. You gather the last dry snow from a shaded slope, render a little leftover fat, crush a few berries. You stir slowly, not to impress, just to remember. And as the bowl takes shape, you think, this one, maybe, will stay buried, just long enough for someone to find it when they need it. Not today, not even this year, but someday. And when they taste it, they'll know. Someone once stirred this with care. You bury it at dusk. Not with fanfare, no singing, no gathered circle. Just you, your hands, the bowl, and the snow. The light is soft. Not quite gold, not quite gray. It blurs the edges of everything, making even your footprints look like memory rather than presence. You've chosen a high patch near a stone outcrop. It's shaded, angled away from the spring meltwater. The ground is firm, the kind that holds what you give it. You press the bowl deep, not hurried, not hesitant, just enough. Then the layers go on. Hide, moss, snow, bark, each one folded like a sentence. Each one sealing a message you're not sure you know how to read, but you trust it's there. You mark the cache with a branch bent like a question mark, and walk away. Back at the fire, people are gathering. Tonight is different. Not a festival, not a feast, but something quieter. The kind of night where someone tells a story without planning to, where the air thickens with remembering. You sit with them. One elder is mixing a small batch of akutak, not for taste, but for teaching. He speaks softly as he stirs. See this, he says, pointing to the texture. Too much snow, and it slips away. Too little, and it won't hold shape. He hands the bowl to a child. Try. The child stirs, awkward and too fast. The fat sloshes. The snow scatters. The bowl nearly tips. The elder doesn't scold. He simply steadies the rim with one finger and says, now you know. There's laughter. No shame, just learning. You think about how much of this world is passed on that way, by failing softly in front of someone who's failed before. Historians often search for structure recipes, systems, lineage. But here, the inheritance is motion, a tilt of the wrist, a humming note. The patience not to speak when someone stirs too fast. Later, the batch is shared. It's rough. Uneven, but good. One spoonful tastes like more snow than fat. Another is dense and slick, but it's all welcome. Someone says, tastes like spring is coming too soon, and everyone nods, because it is. The streams now run underfoot, little rivers forming like veins across the white. The ground gurgles at times. Things shift, crack, settle. A bowl of snow left out begins to slouch before it can be used. There's a scramble to check the lowest caches, those closest to melt. You help uncover one whose sides have caved. The bundle inside is damp, still cold, but no longer sealed. You unwrap it. It's a summer blend: crowberries, wild tallow, scraps of dried mint, You taste it quickly. It's still there, still whole. You offer it to the boy you buried a cache with last week. He takes one bite and says, "It remembers me." You smile. Then he eats another. This time, no one buries the rest. It's passed around, finished with laughter. Even the wet edges of the cloth are licked clean. Some things don't need to be saved. Some things need to be used. As the sun lingers longer, now trailing its light across the horizon like a final note, you walk past your cache again. The branch still stands. The snow has shifted slightly around it. You kneel. You press your hand into the snow, not to dig, just to feel. And beneath the layers, faint, distant, solid, you know it's still there, waiting. The stream by your shelter has doubled in size. It sings now soft, high-pitched, unpredictable. It braids its way across the snowpack like a child discovering how to draw. The melt is here in earnest. It doesn't roar. It seeps. It spreads. It takes its time. Like everything up here, you follow it downhill. It leads you past the now empty cache where the child's birthday akutak once lived. Only the marker remains the carved stone heart, softened now by slush and shadow. The snowbank that once held treasures has collapsed halfway inward. You crouch beside it. There's nothing left to preserve here, and maybe that's all right. You walk on, further along. Another group is digging not to bury, but to unbury. The season has turned, and what was once protection is now threat. Everyone knows it. It's no longer about what can be saved for next winter, but what must be eaten now before the thaw claims it. The cache is deeper than it should be. The snow above has melted unevenly, letting water drip in. You all work fast. The upper bundles are wet but salvageable. The lowest, still cold, still firm. You hand a bundle to a woman who holds it like a newborn. She unwraps it with reverence. It's akutak, slightly gray, slightly separated, but intact. You can smell the muskox fat, the last of the late-season berries. Someone mutters, "I didn't think it would hold." But it did. Historians speculate on the chemical properties that made akutak such an enduring survival food. Its fat content, its aeration, its acidity. You think it's the care, the stirring, the memory mixed in. You help carry the bundles to higher ground. There, on a wind-cleared slope, new caches are being dug, but they're smaller, shorter term. These aren't for next winter, they're for next week. The rhythm is shifting. You feel it in your bones. The snow isn't a friend now. It's a messenger, one that says, "Hurry!" Back at the hearth, people begin planning departures. The land is waking up, and with it comes migration. Some will follow herds. Others will head toward the coast. A few will return to other villages with stories and recipes. You sit with one of the elders as she ties up the last of her bundles. She speaks quietly as her hands move. "This was a good year," she says. You nod, not because there was much fat, she adds, but because we remembered what to do with it. Her words sit with you, like fat on the tongue. That night, someone brings out one final experiment fire akutak, they call it. It's warm, gently stirred over coals instead of snow. It doesn't hold shape like the others, but it clings to the spoon like custard. It's sweet. For once, someone's managed to slip in boiled pine syrup. It tastes like goodbye. Everyone knows it. You eat quietly, watching the last of the snow drip from the eaves. Tomorrow, the caches will be sealed for good, not because they're full, but because the season demands it. The cold can't hold much longer, but you can. You walk once more to your own cache. Kneel, brush back the slush. The marker has tilted slightly. You adjust it. Then you press your palm to the snow, feeling not the cold now, but the warmth beneath your ribs. You remember the stirring, the humming, the weight of the bowl, and you whisper to it not words. Exactly, just presence. Just the knowledge that you'll return, or someone will, and when they do, they'll taste you there. You wake with the sun already up higher than usual, casting bright slashes of light across the ridges, turning the snow's surface into a shimmering crust. The world is no longer white. It's silver, wet, temporary. Today is the last day of caches. By evening, most will be sealed tight or emptied entirely. The rhythm will shift from preserve to move, and so your steps carry weight. You begin by checking on your own. The marker is still standing. The snow around it has slouched but not collapsed. You kneel, brush it gently, and open the seal. Inside, the akutak you stirred alone, still solid, still holding. Its scent rises with the cold berries. Snow, maybe a hint of resolve. You don't unwrap it. You don't taste. You reseal it. Sometimes, a gift is stronger when it waits. You step back and repack the snow. This time, a little tighter. This time, with finality. Later, you help others do the same. One cache contains a wedding mix wrapped months ago for a spring union. The couple has since moved. The mix is still here, waiting like a letter unsent. You unearth it, stir it once, rewrap it. Someone suggests gifting it to another couple. The group agrees, because up here, love doesn't waste food. A child opens their cache and finds it ruined. Snowmelt flooded the lower layers, turning the fat slushy and gray. They cry, not for the taste, for the effort. You kneel beside them and offer a spoonful from your own spare batch. They stop crying. You don't say anything, because sometimes sweetness speaks loud enough. Historians still debate whether Inuit food traditions were built around survival or celebration. But today shows you they're both the same. Survival is celebration. The act of keeping something through cold, of preparing it for someone who might never taste it. This is joy. This is love. The community gathers for one final meal together before the spring dispersal. Each person brings a bowl from their own cache, or what remains of it. Some mix old with new. Some stir fast. Others slow. The fire is fed steadily. The air smells like salt, fat, berry, and farewell. You sit in the circle. You eat, and as the bowls empty, no one speaks of leaving. They speak of returning. Returning when the air sharpens again, when the snow smooths out, when the ground is ready to hold memory once more. As the sky dims, you help bury one final bundle, not food, but tools, a carved ladle, an unfinished stirring stick, a cracked bowl. They're wrapped carefully and buried beneath a stone, next to your cache. A marker is placed, a spoon carved into the top of driftwood. Someone asks if it's for someone else. You say no. It's for you, someday. If you return. If not, you hope someone will find it and taste something old, something quiet, something that waited. That night, you sleep outside, not in a shelter, just under the stars, wrapped in hide, listening to the last drips of meltwater, the hum of a land gently loosening its grip on ice. Above, the stars blink slow. Below, the ground remembers. Your final morning begins not with urgency but with stillness. No one is rushing. No bowls are being stirred. No caches opened. The work is done. The earth has turned. The season has declared itself. And the snow, once unshakable, now shrinks by the hour. You rise with the sun high already, casting your shadow long and clear across the thinning snowpack. Today is a day of leaving. The camp is quiet in the way a memory is quiet, full of detail, but softened at the edges. You help a few families pack their tools, tie bundles to sleds, seal food for travel. Most will move east, following the herds. Others head south toward trading routes. You're not sure where you'll go, but first you visit your cache one last time. The snow has thinned, but the top layer still holds. The branch you placed weeks ago is still upright. You press your fingers into the crusted snow and kneel. You don't open the cache this time. You just sit with it. This was your first bowl. Your strange mixture of snow, fat, berries, and quiet. Somewhere below your knees, it still waits, cold, whole, held. You smile. It's enough. Around you, laughter begins to stir again, small, tentative. A few final stories are exchanged. A child discovers a forgotten spoon and parades around the camp, waving it like a banner. An elder leaves behind a cracked ladle and says, "Let the next hands finish what mine didn't." Historians still wonder why caches were sometimes left untouched, why food would be buried and never claimed. But you understand now. Some gifts are meant to be opened later. Some sweetness belongs to the future. You take one slow walk through the camp, past the now empty fire rings, past the stone where you buried your spoon, past the spot where the child cried over a spoiled cache. Each place now part of your own inner map. Your hands are empty, but you feel full. As you leave, you hear someone behind you whisper, "May your next mix hold its shape." You turn, smile. May yours melt just enough. The land opens wide ahead. There are no roads, only memory, only cold, only a little buried sweetness beneath the surface, waiting patiently for someone, anyone, to return. And when they do, they'll lift the lid, stir the bowl, take a bite, and know someone was here. Someone stirred this. Someone believed it mattered. And now, the snow has stilled, the last cache sealed, the last bowl shared. Around the silent ridges and slow rivers, memory rests quietly in the earth, held in layers of bark, hide, snow, and care. You've walked among it. You've stirred your bowl. You've felt the rhythm of a people who measure time not in clocks, but in fat whipped with snow and berries saved from a summer you almost can't remember. And here, beneath this soft and sleeping land, your efforts remain. Maybe someone will taste them, maybe no one will. But either way, they exist, quiet, waiting. Above you now, the stars begin their slow arc across the sky. The snow reflects their shimmer, faintly, like a whisper of light holding onto one last moment. The fire has dimmed. Your spoon rests beside you. Your hands are warm. And as you lie back, the land begins to hum, not with song, but with stillness, a kind of lullaby spoken not in words but in cold, in patience, in trust that even in melting, some things can be kept, some things can last. So breathe, let your chest rise slowly, let your fingers curl gently, let your thoughts, like caches, sink beneath the surface where they'll be safe until morning. Because the story is done. The bowl is full, the cold has held you, and now you can sleep.